Hello and welcome back to my Rings of Power Season 2 breakdown, the series where I am very much looking forward to the fact that we are only going to be getting one episode per week from here on out. Seriously guys, thank you for your patience as I have worked somewhat hard to get these episodes out in an orderly, timely fashion. It has been a little challenging. I don't have a ton of free time to edit when I'm not at work or dealing with other life stuff, so I know that it's taken a while, you're probably already over episode 1, but nonetheless, we're going to cover every episode, so even if you've already seen this episode talked to death, you're not interested in hearing about it anymore, I'm still going to give my 2 cents on it just so we can have the complete sense. If you are new to this series, I have decided to do a breakdown for each episode of Rings of Power Season 2 as it comes out, create a sort of discussion where we can meet and talk about our favorite or not favorite parts of the episodes, and discuss the show and where we think it's going to go, and all sorts of topics. As always, I ask that here on my channel, we keep things positive, we use constructive criticism, but we don't indulge in hate speech or outward negativity or anything like that that has plagued so many corners of pop culture and the internet. If you are interested in seeing more about my musings about Rings of Power, feel free to check me out on Twitter, where I try to comment more about the show when I'm not able to get a video out every week. If you find yourself enjoying this video, don't forget to subscribe so you can stick along for the journey as we cover every second of what has so far been a really good season of Lord of the Rings television. Without further ado, I think we should just get right into it. So here is The Rings of Power Season 2, Episode 3, The Eagle and the Sceptre. So starting off the episode, we get a little bit of a flashback to Season 2 for everyone who forgot. The loyal steed Beric, the horse of Isildur, stayed behind in Middle-earth and left to find him, who, surprise, surprise, is not dead. Probably comes as a shock to none of you, but Isildur is, in fact, alive this season. We get a brief action scene of Beric versus some orcs, where Beric proves once again that he is an absolute unit. Probably my favorite horse in Lord of the Rings. Gotta say, I don't know. Shadowfax is still up there, but it's close. And then we get a fun scene inside Shelob's lair, but not exactly the lair you might have been expecting. This one is in the middle of the woods, which definitely threw me for a loop, but Shelob's old enough that she definitely has moved around from place to place, so it worked for me. For any of you that missed the fact that this was Shelob, the show doesn't make this explicitly clear, but we do have contextual clues. Mainly it's a spider and Mordor, and if you want to just go, full-blown for certain, it's Shelob. Bear McCreary's soundtrack title, the song that plays during this segment, is called Shelob, so there you have it. Also, the Rings of Power social media made a whole post about Shelob's lair, so it's Shelob, which is cool. Isn't a whole lot to go over in this scene. It's just a fun little action montage, some cool Easter eggs. One thing I pointed out, I think it's kind of cool that they indirectly imply, though this is a reference to Peter Jackson's films. This is not in the books, as far as we know, but in the show, they do imply that Shelob's eye that's kind of scarred out is due to Isildur stabbing her. I thought that was kind of a cool little reference of what's to come and kind of how she gets her gnarled look as she gets older. Then jumping from father to son, we get Elendil back in Numenor, where they have returned from their failed expedition to the tragic news that the king Tar-Palantir has sadly passed away. This leaves Numenor in sort of a tumultuous state where they don't really know where to go from here. You get this really cool dynamic that's been forming between Miriel and Elendil, expanding upon something that I heard in a cast interview. I think it's really interesting this season how, now that Miriel is blinded, Elendil has kind of become her eyes for her. And one of the actors was talking about how this is a really cool way for Miriel to teach Elendil how to be a ruler. She's starting to instill those skills into him that will eventually pay off once he leaves Numenor and founds the kingdom that we will come to know as Gondor. I was excited to see Numenor in this episode, but I do want to say it is one of my pain points so far in this show. The Numenor plotline feels very rushed, which is both upsetting and gratifying for somebody who found the Numenor plotline to be a little slow in Season 1. I thought that in Season 1 they spent just a little bit too much time prepping to leave when they'd already kind of gotten the message across. I also don't think that season 1 really took advantage of the time it had to explain, the real nitty-gritty aspects of the feud between the men and elves in Numenor, besides that one throwaway line about elves stealing your trades, which, sure, it gets a point across, but I think they need to expand upon the themes of mortality between the people of Numenor. There's still time, I will give them that. But Numenor is going to be one of, if not the most important setting moving forward in the season. I fully expect season 3 and 4 to be dominated by the Numenor plotline. Elendil and Isildur are going to become major key players, which is why they're given so much time dedicated to them now, even though they aren't exactly doing anything noteworthy. You still need to set them up so that they can do things later without feeling like they're just dropped into the story all of a sudden. I do wish we got more scenes of Elendil and Eärien interacting. I'm sure we will later, but as of right now, that all felt kind of rushed. Eärien joining Pharazôn's group also felt like it came out of nowhere. I was not expecting that at all, but I guess it makes sense. She's upset at Miriel, so she's taking it out on the faithful. Moving forward, we get a quick scene of Miriel and Pharazôn in the tower, where they're sort of talking about Numenor's past and future, and Miriel is deciding what type of ruler she wants to be. You start to see this divide between them that was slightly explored last season, but seems to have, been kicked up to 11 now that the king is no longer around. You can definitely see Pharazôn is making a play for power. He sees his opportunity, and he doesn't want to let it pass by. I really enjoy Pharazôn. I think he's a fantastic actor and character, and I'm excited to see what happens with him and where he leads Numenor into the further seasons as he sort of develops into a character that is pretty dastardly in the books, though I won't get too much into it. And then lastly, we get another scene of Pharazôn and his groups with, we got Lord Belzegar, who I saw someone point this out on Twitter. I totally agree. He has an absolutely Nazgul sounding name. I've got him pegged to be one of the Black Numenoreans for sure. Eärien is in the group. Again, I'm not really sure when this happened. I would have liked to see more of her, because not only is she on Pharazôn's side, but she's one of the 4 people at the table, which I guess maybe if she's dating Kemen now, that's why she's there, but I don't know. Maybe we'll get some flashbacks. I'm interested to see kind of more about her character and why she's behaving the way she is behaving. I like Kemen. I think Kemen's a funny character. I like the actor a lot. I saw a lot of interviews with him leading up to this season. I've sort of endeared myself to him. I like him a lot, even though he's a little snot. We get Valandil again. I like Valandil a lot too. I think that it is definitely gearing up to have some major confrontations between him and Pharazôn's group, which I'm excited to see. We see Eärien drop the detail that she has the Palantir. She kind of hints at it. My question is, do you think she looked into the Palantir at all? I thought that's what was going to happen last season with the way it was leading up to it. I thought she was going to look into it and see something. As we'll see later in the episode, I'll get into it more. She uses it more as a political ploy, as sort of an elvish artifact. So it makes me wonder if she ever looked into it, or if she just perceived that it was something she could use to usurp Miriel. Either way, I'm interested to see how it plays out. Next is a quick scene which I am probably going to spend way too much time on, because evidently this was the most controversial part of the entire first 3 episodes, which blows my mind because I'll get into it in a second. But we get Adar and Glug, who I love Glug, he's awesome. Shout out to all my Glug heads out there. We see the beginnings of those seeds of doubt that Sauron kind of set in place in the first episode where he revealed Sauron is back. We see Glug is starting to doubt Adar. He's like, we have a home here, why do we need to go to war? And then we see Glug has a family, we at least assume it's Glug's family. That short snippet, you would not believe how much controversy that generated online. It is absolutely absurd. It brought up so many examples from the text about orcs and free will and absolute evil. It was absolutely nuts. So just to put my 2 cents on it, and no, it's not my 2 cents. It is factual evidence from the professor, and if you think otherwise, go read the books, because you are wrong. Orcs have children. Orcs can have children. There are multiple points within Tolkien's letters, within the text, where he refers to the fact that orcs must have been able to have children, and that they spawned in the manner of the children of Iluvatar, which are elves, dwarves, and men, although dwarves are the children of the adoption, that doesn't matter. If they multiply after the manner of the children of the Iluvatar, that means they have families, that means they have babies. If you reference the mud pit scene from the Peter Jackson movies, that is not canon, that is from the movies, and you look like an idiot when you say that online. I'm sorry. Lastly, I've thought a lot about how I wanted to approach this topic and talking about the idea of absolute evil, black and white characters. There's been a lot of debate about this. People say Sauron is absolute evil. People say orcs are absolute evil. And I thought of a lot of different things I wanted to say about it. Instead, I found a clip from the professor himself, which makes all the points that I need to make, so I'm just going to leave it at this.
Mordor, after all, is a principle of absolute evil.
You don't believe in absolute evil, but you believe in absolute good.
Yes.
Let's say,
If you don't believe in absolute evil, why did you create the Dark Lord, who seems to be the apotheosis of it?
But he said in the book that he himself was not evil to begin with.
Now that we've got that out of the way, I can't believe we had to even go over that. I just want to talk real quick about Damrod, the troll. I have mixed feelings about it. I love seeing the troll. I think he's going to be a really fun character. I love the way he looks. I'm a huge fan of the death metal screaming that they have in his soundtrack. If you haven't listened to the last ballad of Damrod yet, it's crazy, and it's a really nice homage to all the different tie-ins between Tolkien's works and the metal community. I did want to harp on a little bit that I do not like Damrod's name. I think they could have gone with any other name and it would have been fine, but instead they named him after a ranger from Ithilien that's in Faramir's party in the Two Towers book. I have no idea why. I don't know why they did this. I think oftentimes the show, in an effort to keep things feeling Tolkien, will use Tolkien names for characters, but I don't think that they do it right. Tolkien himself reuses a lot of names, and there are even a few that I find kind of weird. There's an elf king named Denethor, and then Boromir's father is named Denethor, and I think that name works as a name for a steward and also a name for an elf king, but Damrod, I don't know. Mixed opinions, but I enjoy him in the show. Some people have been griping about how Damrod kills dragons. I think that's a misconception. It says he's an eater of dragon bones, which I kind of took that more in a scavenger sense. Then we get the dwarves in Eregion. We get this fun bit where Celebrimbor says, "We're not trying to take advantage of your dire situation," which I think is just really funny because that's absolutely what they're doing, but he doesn't realize it. I love all these new scenes we get with Annatar. Charlie Vickers is killing it. I am loving it so much. I cannot wait to see what he's going to do with the character moving forward and in all the future seasons to come. I do like that the two characters who are absolutely suspicious and wary of everything in this show so far are Elrond and Durin. I think it's going to make for this really vindicating moment where they get together and they're both like, "Dude, I know, right? Why is everyone acting like this? This is crazy." Loved that Durin was suspicious of Annatar immediately. I thought that was great. I also love the power dynamic between Celebrimbor and Annatar. I feel like you almost kind of get this sense of regret, where when Celebrimbor interrupts Annatar to say, "No, yeah, take your time, we'll give you time to think it over," you kind of get this almost sense that Annatar's regretting, saying, "We are equals, we are partners," because clearly he does not like being stepped on. He is the main character. It is his time to shine, and Celebrimbor needs to learn his place. We'll see how bad that gets for him in the end. I also really love that faraway look that Annatar gets every time nobody's looking at him. I think that's what Charlie Vickers was talking about when he said this season we're going to get those moments where the camera is on him when no one else is watching, and you get to see him being Sauron. I think all those moments where he is kind of zoned out, he is manipulating things in other sections of Middle-earth. For example, the Barrow-wights, I'm certain, is one of those aspects. I also think that Annatar is surprised and almost a little impressed that Celebrimbor was willing to lie to the High King so they could continue to make rings. Celebrimbor is a very vain person, unfortunately, and I think that fatal flaw of his of wanting to create something of beauty and power is being used against him to a horrifying degree of tragic failings. Then we get Isildur traveling along the barrack. We get a scene where he almost drinks stagnant water. That's nasty. He gets some new boots and a sword. He meets Estrid, this mysterious Southlander woman. We don't know much about her. They clearly have some sort of romance plot going on. We learn later that she did take the vow to serve Adar. We see her trying to get rid of her brand. I'm jumping ahead a little bit there, but I don't have much to say about her character as of yet, so I'm going to try to cover it right now. I'm interested to see. I don't think that she is truly evil. She might betray him, but I ultimately think that it's not going to be as bad as some people think it's going to be. I also think that, as was mentioned earlier, she is one of the Southlanders who was freed by Adar when Halbrand went to sue for peace. So her and then the rest of those kind of highwaymen who are hiding in the woods and ambush Isildur later on in this scene, I think those are all a result of Sauron doing his Halbrand thing up in Mordor. We get Arondir, who shows up and saves Isildur from getting killed by these aforementioned highwaymen. Just a small detail, but I really liked how Arondir was gathering wood for the pyre in the area. It's a small detail, but I think there are a lot of scenes like this where somebody will come to save the day and they'll just have been around for no reason. So I kind of like that they give us those contextual clues of like, he happened to be here because he was actually doing something in the area, and it is very close to Pelargir. I do always find it funny though in shows and movies whenever a character leaves to go get firewood or something and they just trek for miles. If you've ever built a campfire in real life, you never go more than like 30 feet from where you're building the fire, but I mean, he is an elf, so maybe it has to be very special wood. Little bit of an unhinged comment. Going into the next thing, we get the pyre. I bet it smelled really good because you see a lot of pine needles in it. That might be a morbid thing to say, but it was definitely something that crossed my mind. And speaking of the pyre, this is the farewell to Bronwyn. I'm interested to see where they're going to go from here. I'm really curious about what they would have done with her character. For those of you who don't know, the actress who played Bronwyn stepped away from acting to focus on activist work. I'm not entirely sure, so don't quote me on that. But I think the send-off they had for her was touching and beautiful and emotionally devastating for many characters. Then once again, we go quickly back into Khazad-dûm, where we see the Durins reunite, and they sort of have this apology and makeup. I love their relationship. I love the dynamic they have with each other. It's good to see them back somewhat on the same page, although not entirely, because Durin does warn his father not to trust the offer of the rings. He has a bad feeling about it, which he will be proven right later on, but as we will get into at the end of the episode, his father clearly didn't listen to him. Jumping back into Isildur's plotline, we get to Pelargir, the Numenorean settlement. Arondir informs Isildur that the Numenoreans will return. We also get the line where Arondir goes, "Don't worry, Isildur, your family will be whole again," right in front of Theo, so rest in peace, because dang, yeah, that's a gut punch. The Theo and Arondir dynamic is really cool. I kind of like it. I think it harkens to a lot of father and son character dynamics that you've kind of seen in characters over the years. You got Kratos and Atreus, the Mandalorian and Grogu, Joel and Ellie, only this time, instead of the gruff parent and the bratty kid, I feel like it's kind of the opposite way around, where it's the gruff kid and then the kind of ethereal father. So it's an interesting dynamic I'm really excited to see play out. They do hint at Theo's father again, which makes me wonder if he will be an important character. And I'm just putting it out there, what if his father is one of the Gaudrim that we see in Rune? Another duo we get is Isildur and Theo. These guys cannot be trusted together. They have two brain cells between them, and they are going to screw up a lot of things if they are allowed to continue to operate at this level. We do learn more about Isildur's mother and how she died saving him. I think this is a really cool character moment for Isildur. We get Theo's reaction to it, which I think is really touching because their stories really do mirror each other. They both blame themselves in some degree for the death of their mothers. And so that's another reason why I'm excited to see their dynamic play out, is because I think these guys are going to be really compelling together. And especially if Theo, as some people have speculated, ends up becoming the King of the Dead, which I think would be kind of odd, but I don't know, you've got a connection to Isildur, so, you know, go for it. Then, of course, we get Estrid burning the mark away, as stated earlier. Jumping forward, Isildur gets Beric back, and the group of men that stole Beric are attacked by Ents, and Theo is abducted by them. I will say the Isildur plotline is moving way faster than I thought it would. I was kind of in the mindset that it was going to take them all season just to get to Pelargir, and so for them to have gone through as much as they have has me excited, because I'm interested to see what else they're going to do with his plotline this season. Real quick, we get the coronation in Numenor. Muriel wears white and Pharazôn red, clearly indicating what you expect it to indicate. I do think the people turning against Muriel needed more setup, because frankly, I could tell that there were frustrations during season 1, but I don't know. I think we needed more stirring of the pot to find out why exactly they were so mad about this botched mission. We have Aarion reveal the Palantir, which I didn't expect to elicit as much of a reaction as it did, but apparently it was all that was needed to start a riot, which ends with a great eagle showing up to the coronation, which they talk about earlier in the episode. It's like a very rare thing that happens at coronations, and is kind of shown as basically the Valar approving of the coronation. Pharazôn seizes this moment to make it look like the eagle is there for him. It clearly does not look like the eagle is there for him. It like kind of backs away and screeches at him when he tries to get too close, but it's enough to fan the flames, and the mob thinks that Pharazôn is favored to be king and probably will be appointed, is where I'm guessing the season will go. Then last but not least, we get the forging of the 7 dwarf rings. We do get to see the difference between what it looks like when Sauron forges the rings and what it looks like when he doesn't. In season 1, we had Elrond drop the Mithril in, but this time it's Sauron who drops the Mithril in, and we see him kind of like utter this weird incantation. His eyes flutter, he drops it in. I think it's definitely meant to symbolize that is the corruption he's sowing into it. Durin the Fourth reacts, clearly recognizing something terrible is happening. I am curious how much Mithril the dwarves have. I'm assuming that once they get the rings, they'll start mining for more. We do know the whole delve too greedily and too deep aspect of the dwarves, so that's coming soon. Hopefully not too soon. I am very worried that this season is going to end with the destruction of Khazad-dûm at the hands of the Balrog. If it does, I will be salty. And that's the episode. Overall, I think this was definitely the weaker of the 3 premiere episodes, but I still enjoyed it a lot. I think that we're starting to get some of the subplots that are a little less important to the overall narrative. Isildur's story probably isn't going to impact very much this season. I'm still enjoying it, whether or not it has too much narrative crossover. It's sort of in the same way as the Harfoot storyline, where it doesn't have a ton of tie-in, but parts of it are still fun, and I'm enjoying the Isildur plotline kind of as a standalone so far. These are characters I wanted to see more of anyway. As I mentioned earlier, Numenor is going to be a big player, if not the biggest player, moving forward. So they need to get people to start caring about the Numenor plotline, and fast. I know I constantly am hearing people online saying, I don't care about Numenor, I couldn't care less about Numenor. That is not a good sign, because we need people to care about Numenor, or when what happens to it, nobody is going to care, and that is going to be a major underwhelming factor for the show, and might possibly kill all forward momentum it has. Overall, I'm excited for this season. I'm excited to talk about and review the episodes. As I mentioned, these should come out in a more orderly fashion from now on, and not the day before the next episode comes out. But thank you so much for watching. Again, if you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe, and please comment down below. I love talking through theories and discussions and knowing what everyone thinks about the show. So please let me know what you think. If you had any issues, if you had any things you liked, let me know. And as always, keep it positive, keep it constructive, keep it healthy. If you want some more of my smaller musings, again, you can check me out on Twitter. I post there more frequently than I do here. But that's about all I have to say. So thank you again. Thanks for watching.